The Planet Express crew is on the job. Their first mission? A delivery to the moon. After introductions with company bureaucrat Hermes Conrad, intern Amy Wong, and physician Dr. John Zoidberg, the cargo is loaded and they are off. Fry is smitten with the idea of visiting the moon and is shocked to learn that it is now the home of a popular amusement park. Wishing for an authentic moon experience, Fry hijacks a rover from one of the park's rides and, with Leela in tow, sets off to explore the lunar surface. But when the rover falls into a crater, they are stranded with a rapidly dwindling oxygen supply. As the pair takes refuge in a hydroponic farm, Leela scolds Fry for his recklessness. Meanwhile, Amy loses the keys to the ship, and her attempts to recover them lead to Bender being ejected from the park. He finds his way to the same farm as Fry and Leela, and after he seduces the farmer's robot daughter, the trio are forced to flee. As the cold embrace of the lunar night descends, Fry and Leela stumble upon the site of the Apollo 11 lander, seeking shelter inside. Fry apologizes to Leela and explains that, as a child, he dreamed of being an astronaut and wished with all his heart that he could one day set foot on the moon. Their gazes turn out the window of the lander. The austere majesty of the lunar landscape stretches out before them, and the pale blue dot of Earth hangs in the sky. Leela at last understands, and the lonely pair shares a quiet moment. But then, Bender returns, the farmer once more giving chase. It is only when all hope seems lost that the ship arrives, Amy behind the wheel, and saves them from certain doom. The moon is not quite what Fry imagined, but it was certainly an adventure. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past.
So I suppose we should probably start this one at the beginning, and I really love this episode's cold open.
Yeah, with the whole mail thing, which is especially relevant right now.
Yeah, the fact that they have disposable delivery boys and the whole thing with, like, Postmates and all that shit going on right now.
Yeah, it does take on an extra layer of darkness.
Yeah, the fact that there's so many of these jokes in this show that just work so much better now than they did 20 years ago is kind of scary.
You know, like, this was never really meant to be prophetic. It's like The Simpsons, where they just did so many things that occasionally they'll hit on something that turns out to be accurate. But, you know, they were often just predicting the darkest possibilities. Not always, but, you know, there's often the most humor in that.
Right.
But, like, even just beyond that one joke, there's also stuff like the joke about it being a Super Bowl commercial, and the professor just saying, like, I hate to have it air during the Super Bowl, but not on the same channel. It's both funny, and it also has a lot of characterization, because, you know, like, oh, the Planet Express and or the professor can't really afford to air a commercial during the Super Bowl.
But he's still, like, proud of it, though. He's proud of the fact that it's going to air during the Super Bowl. It's just not going to air at the right time.
Yeah. But just, like, I like that because it's very much harkens back to The Simpsons, where you have these jokes that also establish about the characters at the same time.
Right, because when he's later on the episode when he's watching them through the telescope, he's like, I should get help, but I am already in my pajamas. And that's the same thing he wears every day, so...
Yeah, well, also, that's the same line he said in the previous episode. Like, I wonder if maybe I am already in my pajamas was supposed to be, like, his catchphrase that they just dropped quickly.
I've done plenty of stuff in my pajamas.
He does the entire series in his pajamas, so it's like...
Yeah.
Well, that's... I aspire to that level of comfort. He just doesn't give a shit. I love Farnsworth.
Although still in the cold open, there's also stuff like the horrible gelatinous blobs package, which I love that it was just addressed to H.G. Blob.
It's like H.G. Wells.
I got, like, once we get into the episode proper, the first big joke, which... Just a background gag, but I love it still, where it's like the open close sign. Sorry, we're closed.
Sorry, we're open.
It really do be like that sometimes, though.
I don't know. Hermes seems like the kind of person who would like having customers. Yeah, this is the introduction of Hermes, and his voice certainly sounds different than it later does. I guess Philomar hadn't quite gotten the diction down quite yet.
Well, that's common.
Yeah, it takes a couple of episodes for them to really fit.
Like, have you ever watched Steven Universe? And, like, if you compare Steven's voice in the first few episodes to the later seasons, he does not sound like the same character.
And there's also Dan Castellaneta as the early Homer Simpson, which has actually been parodied many times in the later episodes. He parodies his own voice, like, "Let's go out for frosty chocolate milkshakes."
And like even in The Simpsons, Marge, where what's her name? She sounds like she's really struggling to do the voice in like the new seasons. Continuing anyway, back on topic. You then have the Admiral Crunch and Archduke Chocula joke.
I would totally try baconated grapefruit.
I mean, I think we all would.
Although, if it's anything like that bacon soda, I guess not.
Yeah, fair enough. Although, what's funny with, Admiral Crunch, he, with him being promoted, he's not actually a captain, like, in real life, because if you count the number of stripes on his sleeve, he's ranked as commander.
So he's Commander Crunch, which kind of gives... That may have been his early name, is Commander Crunch.
Who knows? Oh god, then there's the next joke where the professor introduces Zoidberg as... He's a little unusual. He wears sandals.
He doesn't mention that he's a Decapodian.
Yeah, well, again, that's part of, it's both a joke and it's also really good characterization and world building.
Yeah, it's just he's an alien, he doesn't care. So what?
Yeah, aliens in this world are really mundane. And also, it feels like an early hint at the episode's main theme, which we can probably get into later. And then, again, fitting that same vein, there's, Frying saying, "I want to go see the moon." And then Leela just responds, "It's open till 9.
How do they even calculate the time on the moon? Like, is it open till 9 Earth time or open till 9 moon time?
Yeah, that's true. Like, because they do later get into actual Earth time. Night is 2 weeks long.
I guess. I love the subtle absurdity of implying that the moon closes.
Well, it does close when it's full.
The theme park would close, but...
That's just an old joke. It's like, when is the bad time to visit the moon? When it's full.
Actually, on the subject of the moon theme park, the souvenirs are so dumb that they wrap all the way around and actually become funny. Just "I'm with stupid on the moon. My other car is a Porsche on the moon."
Yeah, because it's just the exact same jokes. They're the kind of jokes that would happen. It's the kind of stuff that you just need to be on the moon to have that kind of joke.
"I'm on the moon at night."
Oh my god. It's so dumb that it becomes funny. Like, you can't help but laugh at it. Although, like, in that same scene, there's also, Bender singing folk due to the magnet suppressing his inhibition, which that's yet another joke that comes with characterization.
And that's a recurring thing that happens oftentimes in later episodes. It's kind of a running gag with him.
Yeah.
And when he shoves that bottle into the moon, into Craterface's face, that's actually a reference to that old movie, like one of the very first sci-fi movies ever made.
Yeah, I was going to make that. The mascot Craterface is most likely modeled after the face in the moon from A Trip to the Moon, 1902, and then the beer shoved in his eye, the homage to that.
Which at the time was coming up on 100 years old when this episode came out.
One thing that I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into it, but the mascot's face being squishy, is it supposed to be like a reference to the joke about the moon being made of cheese?
Possibly. It could just be the fact that he's a mascot face and they're usually made of like foam.
Yeah, it might just be like cheap material, but you might be onto something there.
It's highly flame pro-tardant polymascot foamolate.
Actually, on that subject, you notice the Orlan candy that they're eating in that one scene?
Oh, yeah.
The cotton candy?
The sign said Orlan candy, which is a nice little subtle joke because Orlan is it's a type of synthetic fiber used as an alternative to cotton.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering why the cotton candy was gray. I missed that sign.
Again, that's the thing. Even The Simpsons did this, where they'll have the subtle jokes there for you to pick up on. Although Futurama did a lot more of that.
Yeah, this is a great episode to just watch it and like pause whenever there's an interesting freeze frame because you're bound to find something. Because like The Simpsons did that a lot with all kinds of like signs in the backgrounds and things. Yeah,
like did you see the arcade cabinets like in the scene with Amy and Bender there?
The skee ball?
Skee ball, and then virtual skee ball, and then virtual skee ball.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about virtual skee ball. I'm talking about, like, the arcade cabinets for, like, Dodecapede, Mortal Cooperation, and Gender-Neutral Pack Person.
I didn't even see that one. That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of these jokes just pass by too quickly to get it all in one watch.
Yeah, you really need to see this. I really need to get this series on DVD.
Well, like when you're talking about like jokes you can't even notice in one watch, there was actually a joke that I noticed this time that I never caught any of the times I've seen this episode before, and I've seen this episode like a dozen times by now, where with the lunar sunset and Fry comments "dark side of the moon." And if you listen really closely, and again, I didn't notice this until this time watching it, it plays the opening riff of Breathe, which is the first song on the Pink Floyd album Dark Side of the Moon.
Ah, I see.
I wonder if the shadow is moving at the right speed for what it would have been moving on the moon. I wonder if the shots of the moon are actually accurate to the angle that they would have had.
I don't know.
Because the craters are very detailed in the shots that they have and the establishing shots outside. The craters are very detailed. I wonder if that would be particularly accurate.
Knowing the staff behind this show and how much work they put into those little subtle jokes and references, I would not be surprised if it was. Whalers on the Moon. We gotta talk about Whalers on the Moon. That is just, like, it's a small world, but somehow even worse.
I get, like, whalers on the moon. They're looking for oil on the moon, I guess. Which I do have an old Weekly World News magazine that says, oil found on moon.
I think it's more like a pun because, there's a sign outside the ride that says, Whalers of the Sea of Tranquility. So I think it's probably just a bit of wordplay.
Okay.
Although on that subject, the idea of having this attraction sponsored by Monsanto, and I love how that seems like a joke, but no, that was a real thing. Monsanto did actually sponsor some attractions at Disneyland when it first opened.
Well, a lot of attraction. I haven't been to Universal Studios in a long time, but like every one of their attractions was sponsored by an oddly relevant company. Like the Back to the Future ride was sponsored by Texaco. The Backdraft attraction was sponsored by like some it was like an alarm company or something.
I don't know. They got rid of the Back to the Future ride a couple of years ago, and that's disappointing because that was a great ride.
They replaced it with The Simpsons, which I mean I suppose is more culturally relevant since it kind of is still culturally relevant. But yeah.
I think I actually did The Simpsons ride the last time I was there, and it wasn't great.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can really make a ride out of something like The Simpsons unless it's like a reference to something within the show.
It's just like an animated CG run through like Springfield with all these jokes, references to the show, but it moves so quickly that you can't really keep up with it.
Again, it kind of encourages multiple visits, so you can see all the different gags and everything.
Yeah, it's not nearly as good as the Back to the Future ride, and this is not really relevant to the show, so, I mean, I might cut this bit, but who knows. If you're listening to this in the future and this part is still here, hi, I didn't cut it after all.
And of course, we also get the birth of one of Bender's classic lines, Blackjack and hookers.
Yes, that was such a meme, and I actually think I heard that joke before I ever saw Futurama.
Really?
Yeah, same.
I heard Whalers on the Moon before I ever saw Futurama.
That's an odd one to hear a lot of, because like Blackjack and hookers is very easy to memify. He's like, screw you, I'll make my own website with Blackjack and hookers.
But like, getting back on topic.
The revisionist history of Disney is...
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, there is an excellent Lindsay Ellis video about this exact, not specifically this exact episode, but what this episode represents. Because, like, Luna Park is obviously a pastiche of Disney. They have, instead of Main Street USA, they have Moon Street USA.
Yeah.
And like the whole It's a Small World thing with the whalers on the moon, and the Fungineers instead of Imagineers.
Yeah.
They try to kind of assume this is probably how it works, and they have a shot from the Honeymooners.
Yes. Although personally, I interpreted the whole ride less like intentionally revisionist history and more like...
Right, it's just they're getting it wrong because this was 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, like commentary on the difficulty of rebuilding history from incomplete first-hand sources. At least that was just what I always saw this as.
Certain names that sound modern but have been around a while.
That's kind of related, but yeah. I think the term for that is the Tiffany problem.
Yes.
Although it's funny with with all the comparisons between Luna Park and Disney, it doesn't actually take its name from Disney. The name is most likely a reference to the historical Luna Park, which was one of the very first modern amusement parks operating on Coney Island in New York from 1903 until it was destroyed by a fire in 1944.
Okay, that makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, but like that is the kind of like weird intellectual trivia, just knowing about this historical park that hasn't existed in more than 50 years.
Yeah, the writers on this show really were just way overqualified for the kind of stuff that they put out.
Yeah.
Just for these kind of references and these kind of jokes.
Of course, then the episode moves outside of the park and we start seeing like that hydroponic moon farmer.
One thing I found really cute, which I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the ladybug cows.
Oh, the bugalo?
Yeah. In quite a few languages, their word for ladybug translates to, like, God's little cow.
I wonder if that was why they chose this particular design.
That is interesting. I'd never heard that theory before.
I do like, though, that they did, introduce the Bugalo here and then would later, give them a name and expand on them. Although on that note, this episode was also, I think, the first appearance of the lazy construction worker. The first really notable character model that they would just constantly reuse.
Who is a little... He does kind of remind me a little bit of Panucci.
A little bit. Although I actually really find it funny how we have this, hydroponic redneck moon farmer wearing a "The Moon Shall Rise Again" cap.
And make the moon great again.
Yeah, and then like his lunar rover has a Confederate flag on it.
And I totally you heard me when we were watching this. Like, if this thing jumps a crater and it plays Dixie, which it didn't do, they should have done that. It should have had it play Dixie when they jumped over the crater.
They should have. That's a real missed opportunity for an extra joke. Although it's interesting with the Confederate flag and the moon shall rise again. I feel like this. I don't know if it was intended or not. I think it was likely unintended, but it feels almost like a commentary on the way Confederate iconography has come to represent things other than just the Confederacy itself. Like, we even have Confederate monuments in states that weren't part of the Confederacy.
Yeah, I've seen Confederate flags being sold up in Pennsylvania.
Well, you also have kind of this weird disconnect in the fact that you have this like moon-dwelling redneck, but he knows everything about like how the moon works, all the science and the hydroponics, and he has his own thing. So he's obviously knowledgeable in this in this field.
I mean, he would have to be to survive out there.
But how to handle all this kind of stuff, yeah. But he's still this like backwoods redneck with 3 robot daughters.
I mean, those two things aren't necessarily correlated.
Like, how does he get robot daughters anyway? Does he just build them himself? Did he buy them? Did he have a robot wife somewhere? How...
It just raises too many questions.
Is the Crushinator adopted?
Oh my god, I love the Crushinator.
Yeah, she's just great.
She should have had an even more roboticized voice.
They should have brought her back as a recurring character, frankly. Like, I don't know how they would have justified it, but the Crushinator should have been a recurring cast member.
Could have had it as, like, Bender's off and on again paramour.
Yeah, he has too many. Too many to count.
Oh yeah, I do love how the farmer just says oxygen doesn't grow on trees. It quite literally does.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
At least not on the moon, though.
I mean, only because there are no trees on the moon.
Right.
I mean, they could have tried planting some.
Well, the moon doesn't have any trees, but it does somehow have alligators wearing space helmets.
Yes! Helmets.
I think the alligators is probably my favorite joke in the entire episode.
I guess one of the big themes of this episode, if we can get past just making what gags we like, one of the big themes is the fact that when Fry saw moon exploration and space exploration, this was a fantasy of his. This was something that he aspired to, and now it's something that's considered to be commonplace. It's just like the idea of meeting aliens, but no, he meets an alien today, and it's nothing, and it's like he's just a doctor that's not actually particularly good at his job. So it's like the thing that he thought would be spectacular and amazing is commonplace and boring. And it's the same way Leela sees it. They go out and they find the original moon landing site, and it's like it's just a crummy moon landing pod and a plastic flag, which actually by now should be bleached white, but they maybe the Preservation Society or the Stickler Society replaced it.
Yeah, the lunar landing site that was restored to its site by the Historical Stickler Society, if that plaque is to be believed. That's another great background joke. But, you're talking about the theme there, just with the two of them, like, marveling at the beautiful lunar landscape and Earth in the distance from inside the lander. That really does, I think, touch on the main theme of the episode, like you said, where just things that may seem mundane to you can be incredible when you really look at them. And it can be worth getting in touch with that sense of wonder, which I believe a later episode would kind of run with.
I feel like, it might be just looking into this, but it also kind of feels like a metaphor for, like, growing up. Some things just feel mundane, but you still need to find the wonder in things.
Or even the fact that certain things that used to be spectacular are now mundane. It's like, remember when you were a kid and you got a new video game? And then you spend the whole time going home, you'd like reading the instruction manual and everything. But now you can get a new video game, you buy it digitally. You buy like 5 during a Steam sale. And you're like, well, maybe I'll play them eventually.
When I was a kid, the connecting to the internet, we had dial-up. And it just, it was a very limited thing because it cut off the phone, so I couldn't be on there for too long.
Yeah, I still remember. I probably still have a folder of it somewhere. It's like when I first discovered, like, Google, I did a Google image search for, I think it was like, I just wanted pictures of dragons. And I did a Google image search and I downloaded, like, everything from, like, the first 20, 30 pages. And I just saved them to a folder.
That sounds about right for you. But, yeah, the internet was... I grew up with the internet. My very earliest memories involve my dad's old Windows 95 and then later 98 computers. And we always had internet connection, but using it was kind of a special thing. And now, it's rare that I'm not browsing the internet or on my phone or something. Hell, we're using the internet to record this.
Exactly, which is what's so amazing about the internet is that so many things are just so deeply intertwined with it. So not only is it mundane, it's required. So they're doing this not just as a trip, they're doing this as a necessity. This is why they have to go to the moon, is part of their job. Yeah. Which is, and you could think of it as the kind of themes of something like Alien, where the idea is these are truckers. These are space truckers. The fact that they're in space is boring to them.
That's just what happens as things become more normalized. But again, it is often worth taking a step back and realizing just how incredible things can be.
Especially how fast things have advanced with just the past decade. Like, smartphones, for example, weren't like a big thing. Like, I didn't have a smartphone until, like, high school.
I didn't have a smartphone until I was already out of high school. I didn't even have any kind of a cell phone until I was in high school.
Yeah, I didn't get my first cell phone until I got all the way through college without a cell phone. And they were common at the time. My mom had a cell phone, but I had to, like, call her when I was done with this. I was like, I need to be picked up or something.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and after school, like, walking over to the Boys and Girls Club and having to use their landline telephone to call my mom and let her know that I had gotten there safely because I didn't have a cell phone.
Which, is certainly, it definitely makes a lot of people safer. I probably would have been much easier time of going out of the house and just walking around if I had my phone with me, because then if I ever had any problems, I could just call her, get a ride home.
But people are getting phones at, like, so young, and it's bizarre and worrisome.
I don't necessarily think it's worrisome. I think it's just the fact that it's something else that needs to be taken into account. Just because it's not what you grew up with doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. That's the problem with a lot of juvenoia and the harshness of nostalgia. Is like, just because it's not what you grew up with doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means it's different and it requires being approached in a different way. Yeah, they have these cell phones at age 6. It's like, well, what are the harmful... You don't think about the harmful aspects of necessarily technology. You think about what could be harmful about them being exposed to somebody or something that is harmful for them. So, like negative comments on YouTube, being a shitty person. Yeah. You don't blame the technology, you blame the people behind it.
Yeah, well, think of it this way. they're going to be needing to use this equipment and this stuff pretty much every day of their entire lives, including, in adulthood. It's pretty much a necessity now. So by giving it to them from a young age, they're able to get used to it and learn how to use it, the ins and outs, the safety.
Right, because I feel like if I had a lot of these things growing up, I would have been in a much stronger place because I did not deal with people easily, but now I can talk with people online. When I first discovered the internet, the first thing I wanted to do was go into a chat room and talk with people. But I couldn't because I was like at a friend's house and he had the internet and we didn't have the internet back home, but his mom wouldn't let us go into a chat room. She didn't think it was safe. And it's like, what's wrong with just talking with people?
Yeah, we've gotten pretty far off topic here.
Yeah, but the main point is, I guess the main point of the theme of the episode is just the growth and just the change in societal aspirations. It's like something that you may have aspired to, somebody that you may have worshipped, may end up being something mundane. And she didn't even, I don't think they even name... They named Neil Armstrong and nobody else, but with the fact that Buzz Aldrin is a freaking pimp. Buzz Aldrin is a badass.
Well, it's like to them going to the moon and just doing stuff and like going to other planets and seeing aliens. It's like on the same level of cell phones to us. It's like to them, talking to Fry and saying, we just gonna stop at the moon for business and then go home. Why even bother looking around? Who cares? It's always gonna be there. And it's like for us, imagine pulling someone from like 1904 into the 21st century and saying something like, I'm kind of stealing this from an old Tumblr post, but just imagine saying to them, I hold in my pocket an object capable of instantly gathering for me anything from all human knowledge ever accumulated, and I use it to talk to my mom and look at cat pictures.
And of course, beyond that, it's like you could say, if I need food or something, I can put it into this information in there, and it will digitally take from my digital bank account, and it will send me the food within a few days.
Because of, what's been going on this past year, even more things have been accessible remotely.
Yeah, we're learning how much we really rely on this stuff.
Well, and even you can compare the fact, like, visiting the moon in the year 3000, like, if you look back at, like, the year 1500, it's like, we're just going to India for spices. It's like, no, that's like an 8-month-long journey or some shit. It's like, no, and now you can just fly over there in a day.
Anyway, back on the subject of like the jokes in this episode, because there were a lot of other really good jokes. One that I really liked was over the end credits, Bender's singing some new verses of his own to She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain. Just like, I'll shoot her with my ray gun when she comes, and like, I'll be blasting all the humans in the world, which not only is that really funny, I think this is the first real hint we ever get of Bender's murderous misanthropy.
Of course. Well, not really murderous misanthropy. He never has liked humans, which kind of raises the question again. It's like, why did he give a crap that the suicide booths were working? Yeah, I mean, he's a robot. It's just kind of his thing. The fact that he went to high school with other robots, it's like that's another weird thing, because like all the animatronics are like sentient. Which, why would they need to? Are they robot actors? Do they hire them? I wouldn't put that past the Futurama of having to like actually hire robots and pay them instead of just buy them,
I don't know, man. It's weird. But actually, come to think of it, how did he go to high school with someone? Because like we see in a later episode that his education was instantaneous.
Well, they were both in the same factory at the same time.
Maybe. Although speaking of Bender, there's also that, bit where like they learn Amy's rich and then Bender just immediately steals her wallet. And once again, another first, I think this is when we first established that he's a kleptomaniac.
Well, not even necessarily a kleptomaniac. He's obviously a cheap ass. He had that coin on a string in the first episode. But yeah, the introduction of Amy. Amy is a great character. I like how she develops over time. The fact that she's from the Mars Wongs.
I love Amy because I have known people like her. She is just immensely recognizable, and she's great.
Oh, and the further foreshadowing from Professor Farnsworth, "Oh, to be young again and a robot." That is Yeah.
Are you referring to that episode where they all get just de-aged?
Not de-aged, the episode where they get body swapped around.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I thought you were talking about the one where they all get, get younger, because that was season 4. The one where they get body swapped is either season 6 or season 7.
Yeah, it's a much later episode, but it's weird because the way this show works, you don't know if they're just setting the seeds or they're just doing what a lot of early seasons do, is they just plant ideas, and if they grow into something, it's a good coincidence, but if they don't, oh well, just don't worry about it.
Yeah. Although actually there's one joke in this episode that doesn't really land for me, where it just reads like a missed opportunity, where, after Fry sees Dr. Zoidberg and he's like, the doctor says I'm as healthy as a crab. He should have said fit as a fiddler crab.
That would have been too clever for Zoidberg, I think.
I don't know. It seems like a missed opportunity for an extra little joke there to me.
I think that would have been too clever for both Zoidberg and Fry.
I guess.
Healthy as a crab is like, yeah, he's a crab, so he's like, that's how he would judge people.
Come on, Zoidberg's not a crab, he's a lobster.
He's not even a lobster, he's a decapodian, if we're going to be that.
I'm sorry, actually, that makes me think. Can I just point out that Zoidberg himself is a joke? Like, his whole character is a really good, subtle joke. The absurd irony of the character who's very heavily Jewish coded between, his speech patterns, the accents, the whole Decapodians are all very, Jewish coded.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And like even his name Zoidberg, the fact that he's shellfish.
Oh. yeah, that makes sense.
I absolutely love that joke. That is so good.
Zoidberg is not kosher.
Nope.
I can't really think of too many jokes that really didn't land, because the fact that they didn't hit on them for very long. If a joke didn't work, there's just going to be 10 others coming around. So this episode was just really, really enjoyable.
Yeah.
And just a good watch. And it's a great way of setting up just the universe, because they introduce all these new characters right at the beginning. And it's like, oh yeah, these are the introduction of these characters. And you don't even really think about it if you know the series, from like how the series develops, because these are just the main cast.
But the fact that they introduce them all right away actually does help the whole world and the company in particular feel very lived in and populated. Yeah,
and of course, Fry works as an audience proxy because he needs to be introduced to these people. And of course, so does Leela and Bender. And the fact that Leela's just kind of the only competent one. Not even all that competent, though. She's just the least incompetent out of Fry and Bender.
Yeah, there is that, subtle, yet again, another subtle absurdity of having a starship captain who has no depth perception.
Which they kind of mention and kind of don't. Like, they do make jokes about it later, but the fact that, yeah, even though she has no depth perception, she has the initiative. She knows what to do around things. But she's still completely unqualified for this sort of thing.
Oh, no, that's they'll all grow into their roles with time, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So I suppose, any final thoughts?
I mean, I've gone through my notes and I've said pretty much everything that I wanted to bring up, Eden.
I wanted to say something about crane machines, but it's not that important.
No, go ahead.
Oh, crane machines.
Like, if we exclude the fact that they're rigged, I'm not too bad at crane machines.
Neither is Amy anymore.
Just the grip on the crane is what's randomized each time.
I mean, you could kind of see that with Amy, where, the first time she literally had the keys, and then they slipped out because it's kind of programmed to do that.
Yeah, they really do make some of the riggings really obvious. It's no secret that these games are rigged, because you can actually get the instruction manuals for these machines online and read the PDFs, and it says that you can set the win frequency. You can set it to a higher or lower coefficients, like where they'll only win every certain number of games, because obviously if they don't make their money back, there's no reason to have the machine there.
So yeah, overall, pretty solid episode. We're getting the series establishing itself, and still going to get better from here.
Yeah, it just flowed really organically. better than the pilot did.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say this is a much stronger introduction to the series, and the first episode is really necessary, but this is really where the series begins. As I say, the episode's called "The Series Has Landed."
Yeah, that's not unusual. After they establish the premise, now it's like, okay, who was it who said the pilot is where you lay the groundwork, and episode 2 is where you show us that you're a show, where you really need to establish what your show is going to be, and they do a really good job of that here.
Yeah, I definitely have seen that in other shows where the pilot is alright, but the first real episode is stronger.
The superhero origin story is out of the way, and now we can just fight crime.
So, I suppose that will do it for this episode.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your 3 voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. The theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod, licensed from filmmusic.io. Find it and hundreds of other free songs at incompetech.filmmusic.io. You can hear more episodes of Space Podcast 3000 on YouTube or at soundcloud.com/spacepod3k. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/spacepod3k. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew goes apartment hunting in I, Roommate.